like to call the meeting to order for the Parks and Rec meeting of March 12th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Mary Champagne.
Here.
Dave Tuttle. Leonard Jones.
Here.
Megan Montague. Reese Clayton.
Here.
And Leonard, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
We can do that. Allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a motion on the approval for tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second that motion.
And an approval for last month's minutes from the January 8th, 2025 meeting?
I'll approve those. I'll second that. First did.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Staff reports?
Scott Bell, Recreational Services Director. Report, what we've got right now is I've met with Make a Scene regarding our Music in the Park series for this upcoming year. And we are confirmed again for all the Saturdays in June. And the program will run 3 to 9 p.m. And we'll do a 4th of July Music in the Park finale again this year. And all that will be over at the Green Pavilion. 4th of July Mayor's Picnic will be same as last year and is scheduled as we've done it previously. And 4th of July Parade info will be coming soon. And right now we're at 3,882 Facebook followers. So we've got plenty of people looking at what's happening, and that is the report.
Thank you, Scott.
Hello, I'm Jess. I'm the Parks and Property Supervisor. We've been doing all of our basic bathroom cleaning and all the basic kind of maintenance that we normally do. We've been a little bit slow on snow removal this year, so there hasn't been a whole lot of that. So we've had some new projects that are coming up for this summer. We built 30 new planters for a project that we'll speak on later. Over at Nunley, we got a lot of things that we're planning on working on and upgrading and hopefully making that an amazing park for all the public. We went through and we've got all the fencing around Idea Park cleaned up, fixed from where other companies broke it down with snow the year prior. And that's trying to get that done has been kind of fun. And like I said, we have a lot to talk about on the specifics of Nunley. And I'm kind of going to leave that to him when we get to that point. So that's all I really have for right now.
Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Public comments?
Sure. My name's Dan Fleckenstein. I'm the president of Matsu Softball Association. And okay, how about that? My name's Dan Fleckenstein. I'm the president of Matsu Softball Association. We're in partnership with the city of Wasilla for a management use agreement at the Bumpus Softball Complex. And we've been planning our 41st season coming up, and I wanted to come give you a report, the same report which I shared at the city council meeting here a couple weeks ago. We're very excited to have our bathroom project get underway this spring and eventually have bathrooms at the ballpark. That's awesome. We've been working with the Public Works guys off and on over the past actually couple of years on it. They've been great to work with, super helpful, and we definitely appreciate having a project for bathrooms at the ballpark. It's been something that's been much needed for many years. Our summer league is going to be kicking off here in May. We're expecting 50 local registered teams and about 750 players participating weekly. We estimate there's between 800 and 1,000 people that use the ballpark each week during our league season. We have a 10-week season that runs from mid-May through August, and we play Monday through Thursday nights, all evenings, beginning about 5:30 up till about 10 o'clock. We have 4 tournaments on the schedule that we'll be hosting this summer at the ballpark. We expect to have at least 80 or more teams visiting from out of town and over 1,000 folks visiting our community as a result of these tournaments. The Matsu Memorial Co-Ed Tournament is May 30th through June 1st. The Mugshot Showdown, which is the premier men's tournament in the state. Folks come from all over the state for that tournament. That's July 18th to the 20th. We are hosting 2 state championship tournaments in August. The Co-Ed D state tournament is August 15th to 17th, and the men's D state tournament is August 22nd to August 24th. We have a number of ball improvements that we're going to make at the ballpark, starting off in late April, as soon as we can get on the fields and start working on the infields and the dirt. We have repair to some storm damage to the chain link fencing. We had a tree blow over and fall on the fence that we're going to repair. We're also going to install a new gate in the outfield fencing so that our field maintenance folks can easily drive out there with the mower to dump off their clippings and that kind of stuff. And we'll also need to replace some hardware on the dugouts. The wind in the winter has blown and bent some of our gates and things, so we're going to work on that. We're also going to refinish and paint the bleachers. We have 8 sets of bleachers on the 4 fields, and they're in need of some upkeep and painting. Also on the concessions building, the trim and some other accoutrements need to be painted and updated, so we'll be working on that. We're expanding our security system to add a couple more video cameras. Unfortunately, we've had challenges with vandalism at the ballpark, especially over the last couple of years, and so we're hopeful that our enhanced security system will help deter some of that. We need to remove excess grass from the infields and also add topsoil on the infields this spring. We're going to replace all the bases on the fields. The 4 fields will have new all bases around the infield as well as pitcher's rubber. And then we need to do some rehabilitation on our batter's boxes. We have turf-lined batter's boxes, and over time they get worn out and we just need to update those. We also plan to paint our fair and foul poles on the 4 fields, and we have some new signage that we're going to put up for notices of video security system being in place, as well as some helpful reminders that folks will pick up trash and throw it away and that kind of thing. As far as our priority needs go, we would like to install paving and improve access to the ballpark, especially for emergency services. As it is now, coming off Mystery, there's about a 50-foot tongue paved up to the gate, and then it's gravel across the parking lot, and then we paved the interior of the ballpark from the main gate up to the scorekeeper's building. And that area between where the pavement ends at Mystery to the main gate is gravel, and at times when it's busy, folks park in the way and stuff, and we've had a challenge keeping that alleyway open so that in the case of an injury that we can have emergency services or an ambulance easily access the field. We're working on an improved parking plan. Right now it's just a gravel parking lot with no delineation of parking, but we have several folks on a committee that are working on ways to optimize that and try and get the most out of our parking lot, because it's not large enough to accommodate the amount of people that participate, and oftentimes during tournaments we have parking along both sides of Mystery for several blocks in each direction for folks that are participating. The other thing is, at some point we would certainly welcome any type of playground equipment that might be placed at the park. Parents that participate there's lots of kids that come to the ballpark, and as it is now, we have a sand pit area with the netting over the top so that the littles don't have to worry about foul balls coming their way. But if there was some kind of standard playground equipment at that ballpark, it would certainly get used and be welcomed by the parents that participate. In addition to that, I just want to make a couple comments from the previous meeting. I was doing a little bit of research, and there's an entity called City Parks Alliance that I was doing some studying on. They have information about participation of city parks, improvement of parks, getting feedback from users of the parks, that kind of thing. So if you're not familiar with City Parks Alliance, they have a quite robust website, and you could take a look at that. And then there was also discussion on a survey of the users of the city parks and trying to get some feedback. And the comment I wanted to make there was it might be fairly straightforward to have, come up with maybe 5 questions on a piece of paper, and then visit the parks yourself, a couple times a summer, pick a sunny day, go to a park, walk around, hello, introduce yourself, ask these 5 questions that you want answers to, and bring those back. And over the period of a summer, if you did that a couple times each, you could have literally dozens of surveys that you would have real life information and communication with the users of the parks. And that might be a little bit better way to target in on those users versus a Facebook survey or some other online survey that you hope folks will take, since you'll actually be talking to people at the park. So that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
I did just want to talk on the Bumpus Ball Field and Dan's presentation there. First off, it's great to hear a group that's actually taking some skin in the game, and not only do we hear the improvements of when we let them use the land, but they obviously are taking that serious and wanting to do the maintenance or wanting to do the follow-up. Several meetings ago, that's what we talked about when we were like, hey, what type of organizations do we want to deal with? One of the big things is we want organizations that want to communicate with us and they want to benefit with us and prosper, not only for themselves, but as the city of Wasilla too. So it's really great to hear again, not only the improvements you guys are making, but the future planning that you're trying to do as well, because that's what Wasilla needs right now is we need a plan. We need to figure out what infrastructure do we want to put our basket into, and what infrastructure is just, hey, it's out of date and really need to rework. So again, we really have to say that you guys are doing a wonderful job and it's awesome. One question I would have to ask you guys is what could our committee do to really make you guys even prosper more? I do know that we've tried to show support for you guys in the past, which is really great, but yeah, that's kind of where our committee is at. It feels like is, what's the point of this committee? Are we just here to have, give us updates, or what can we do to really make sure you guys have that next tool to succeed? So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Any other comments? Okay. So the next up is unfinished business with the Parks Master Plan.
So carrying over from last meeting, a lot of discussion's been about the master plan. And so we emailed today, thought we sent that earlier, apologize. But Leonard, Commissioner Jones had prepared a proposal and a marketing plan to kind of see how we can move forward and create some action. And perhaps Leonard, if you want to kind of recap what you've created here.
Thanks for that cold cookie. Well, based on our last meeting, and the data that was provided to us at that point in time, which was the old plan, if I can get my page here correct, from September 17, 2020. What I try to do with this is get us a marching plan that we can take, set up some committees with the council commissioners here, designate how we would work this with your office, I suppose, to come up with some kind of an action plan or a proposal that would supersede this old plan and meet the needs of the city going forward for the next 10, 15 years or longer. It gives a roadmap, and I like what was presented last week as well, that you, well, not last week, back on the 8th, about creating a department for Parks and Rec. Long-term planning, I think that's something, and I'm not sure where the city's at with that kind of a approach, but you've got a big operation now going on, and it's just gonna get bigger. So if you lay the groundwork now, and that's what I was trying to do with this, with the, you know, proposed marketing plan as well as a proposed budgets working document. I know how that works, but, you know, it's a starting point that I thought we could take a look at and see if there's anything that, you know, the commissioners want to do with it, how we move forward with something like this. I don't know what all the deadlines are on your side as far as the city council. I haven't followed that. As far as putting something like this out for approval with the council members, or you know, it needs refinement. It's just basically the ABCs down the road as to how to get there. But I felt we needed a starting place. It looked like this other was just, to me, I got a little frustrated with the meeting on the 8th. You've been working on this for years, and you know, I've been in Wasilla since 1984, and it's a good plan, but I think we can make a lot of improvements if we get the commission to work, you know, get a committee working on it and come up with some tasks for people to follow. Just like was presented here with the ballparks, you know, we go out and take a hands-on approach, face-to-face, basically how I like to do with people anyway, and get a feel for what, you know, really is needed here. What does the city really want from this commission on this? Do we have any marching orders? I don't think we do, other than to say, here it is, let's make something. Okay. So I think, you know, coordination with this group and with your 2 departments, 3 departments, whatever it would take to pull something like this together, as well as the finance department, if you want to get that far. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and so the budget cycle, we're working on drafts now for CIP. Anticipate that gets its way towards council early May,
It's mid-April.
mid-April or so. So in the next month or so, we'll have drafts that'll start going to council. So they'll kind of get a snapshot of that. And part of this, where I think this can be successful, I think there was resistance to a feasibility study. And so I think if this path is more in line with what the commission's looking to do, I think, like you said, get the commissioners involved and kind of take a look through this and just see how we can get action in play instead of a cycle of discussions.
So if I can comment, first of all, Leonard, thank you for putting this together. Over the years, the commission has changed, and it went from hands-on to strictly, you know, trying to basically being a stepping stone to entities coming through for a larger project and needing approval. Advisory board. And then it went from advisory board to trying to round up volunteers. And it's, you know, to be honest with you, if you can't find people to hire, you can't find people to volunteer. And so that's kind of a tough one. We're past wanting to round up volunteers for things, but we need a 20-year outlook of where things are going to be, because it takes that long to put a lot of large-scale things together. The campground, for example, that could be the best campground for 100 miles. It could be, you know, a real gem, but it obviously needs time and money, and a lot of money. But yet, you know, you have to have a plan, and you have to have a starting point. And I know that there's been a lot of obstacles between, you know, the trees that had beetle kill and getting funding, et cetera. And there's a lot that's actually happened there. For example, the archery group. I mean, I hope that they're able to use things the way they wanted to, because those, you know, like softball, it's a good thing to pull different user groups together. But it just takes a long time to get all of this, you know, on some sort of a document to follow. Because as we all know, you know, people change out, hands change out. plans change, but we just need something, we need a starting point. Comments?
First off, again, thank you, Leonard, for preparing that. I think it's great. Action is where we're at. We're really ready to see some action when it comes to not only our committee, but what is the role in the parks here in Wasilla. So, yeah, something like this is a great start because it allows for us to start this communication with the city of Wasilla and hopefully figure out what agenda are they on, and does that kind of agenda really reflect the interest of the public?
I have more of a curiosity question that maybe Scott can answer, but I swear I saw the city's updating their comprehensive plan. Is that correct? And there's going to be public forums and things involved with that?
Correct.
Correct. Do you know if any type of Parks and Rec is going to be included in the comprehensive plan?
Good question.
So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Erich Schaal, the Public Works Director. Just works for me. And I share some of the responsibility with Scott on kind of co-chair Parks and Rec, if you will. I think to your question on the comp plan, every one of you should be involved, and you should not wait for an invitation because they'll probably forget to invite you. So you need to watch for the comp plan because your perspectives are super important as you sit on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, but also just as residents of Wasilla, it's very important that your perspective is shared. Come to those meetings. I think it's a great opportunity to look at how it's structured. Dowell Engineering has the contract to lead the comp plan, and you're going to see a really robust public outreach. You're going to see advertisements. You're going to see the form that it makes a really good public exchange of ideas, and I think a lot can be freely gleaned from how they run that, and we could do a lot to build public feedback for Parks and Rec. I think this the plan that you put together is excellent because it brings the structure that you usually see in a Parks and Rec department. And I'll speak a little bit largerly or in a bigger frame. To have Parks and Properties be separate from a real Parks and Rec, I think is a fundamental change that needs to be made. It needs to go back to Parks and Rec. And I think historically, instead of fixing some administrative problems, the system was broken. And that's why you've not seen any action for 10 years. It's been broken for 10 years or more. And it's time to start using your positions to lobby the council and the mayor to correct those. We'll be talking about projects tonight. We'll be talking about some missteps because that structure doesn't exist and it needs to be remedied. And so to start with a plan is a great idea. Any structure is better than no structure, and it can be morphed as kind of it's felt out. But I think that it's really important, as Mr. Fleckenstein mentioned, you need to know your audience and you need to be able to be advocates for the programs that you're passionate about. And so to use the Softball Association as a great example, we chatted last year basically, and I said use the Menard and use WASI as good examples of keeping a user group in front of the council. And so the impacts to the city with the number of visitors that come into town, the number of events that happen, led directly to new bathrooms being funded, and also brought new bathrooms to the opposite side where the soccer field is. And that was because of the direct advocacy that Mr. Fleckenstein and the rest of his board members brought. And that would have normally gone through Parks and Rec Committee, but that structure wasn't there for the advocacy. And so I think it's important to have your own kind of priority list of what you think the city needs to put time and attention and resources into, and then there needs to be robust discussion and a cohesive message that's brought from this advisory group up to the council so they can hear what because your role is to provide that interface because you're out there in the public and you're experts in what you want to see, and that the council's looking for guidance. And so a unified voice with some structure is going to be very well appreciated by the council. As Scott said, we're in the early period for creating this year's CIP. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to formulate a request to the council for any of the planning monies that you'd like to see and leverage what's been started with the comp plan and you know, mirroring the fact that Public Works is going to be going out for RFPs for master planning on the water and sewer side. It wholly makes sense to lobby the council to fund an update to the Parks Master Plan and bring that consultant support in that adds the organization and the parks plans tend to be beautiful, right? You bring the landscape architects in and the park planners in, and they're usually beautiful documents with really easy to support visions. You know, everyone loves to see a park full of people, and you get those sewer master plans are not pretty. They're just put pipes here and have a sewage treatment plant over there. So, you know, in the lifespan of plans, park plans tend to be the most enjoyable and are easy to build consensus and community support. So I think it would be, that would be on top of my list of my recommendations to you tonight, is that in your next meetings, start talking about, you know, the immediate asks that you would have to the council and ask for their support as you try to foster taking the plans where you want to go.
Thank you. Any other comments under the Parks Master Plan, or did anyone want to enter a committee of the whole?
Not sure. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll make a motion to move as a committee as a whole.
Second?
I second that, yes. I just, yeah, never mind. We're good.
I think at this time, the plan is kind of figuring out what is our next big step. And I think the document you presented for us will be kind of a great way to make sure we get all our stuff in there. And yeah, definitely within the next meeting or so, we have to go to the city and say, all right, here's our documentation of what we want and what we can expect out of them. And then they can kind of provide our feedback. So again, I think this document's going to be our first step into really figuring out this Parks Master Plan for a good finalness, you know.
I agree, but I think at the same time, we need to take another bigger step here, and I think we need to have a meeting with the mayor. Honestly, okay, to get a feel for what what the city's really looking at. I know we hear all the conversations about what we want as a city, but I don't know what, you know, I've spoken to Glenda, I've known her for years, but I don't, how do they want to empower this committee to do this? We need a working committee group, in my opinion, to work on this project and to break it up into pieces if we can, you know, once we know where we're going to go with it. There's a lot of parts and pieces. It's a big project. And I just want to make sure that the mayor is in tune with it with us and not sit here and pound our head on the wall like you've been, you know, I haven't been here that long, but the first thing was we don't get involved, you know, and that's not the kind of person that I am, not to get involved. So, I think we should probably put some kind of, if this hasn't been seen by the mayor, then send it forward for some feedback from the council, if they would do something like that, or set up a meeting with, you know, with Scott and with, everybody, I guess, with Linda, just to get a feel for the committee, what this committee want to do, how do we proceed?
So, first, my opinion, if we could get this forwarded someone to say, okay, at least, you know, go through this and make your comments. And I know that from things of the past, in order to have the commission have a conversation about it, we all have to meet in the meeting. We can't meet outside of this to have that conversation, unless it's just one-on-one and we don't talk to anyone else. So we don't have that conflict. But it definitely needs to go forward because our meetings are only, you know, every other month, so it takes quite a while to get anything done. So even getting permission to, you know, give it a serious look at your proposal and marketing plan, and then just make corrections or start morphing it as we go.
I'd like to make a motion that, yeah, we move the marketing plan forward and try to get it to the city council to at least have some type of presentation, whatever that takes from our advisory board.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
So what we can do is we can put it in an IM, informational memorandum, so it does go to the council. They have that. Madam Mayor was actually going to try to be here. She's actually in Washington, D.C., so she was going to try to meet because of, I think, a lot of the things that were going on. She's back, I think, in another week and a half or so. But, yeah, like Mary said, we can have a special meeting. It's just got to be announced publicly. We can, you know, not wait another 2 months, that kind of thing. So there's just some of the course of action that we can certainly take for getting some action here.
That's what we need.
Take a motion to exit the committee of the whole.
I'd like to make a motion to exit as the committee as a whole.
Second,
Second.
thank you. Okay, on to new business. Sorry, new business discussion on the City of Wasilla 2025 cleanup event.
Cleanup days, so we have it scheduled right now, May 5th through the 10th. And based on our experiences the last couple of years, again, of not being able to get volunteers for the dumpster sitting part of it, what we're gonna be doing is have May 10th, Saturday, as a designated drop-off day. And we'll find a way to man it via volunteers and such, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it'll be an all-day Saturday drop-off. Because the reality, what I think we found is when we did the Monday through Friday one, we didn't have anybody that could sit the dumpster to make sure what was going in it was not hazardous and met the guidelines of the borough. That I think we had less than 5% of our drop-off Monday through Friday, so it really is, for a matter of resources and the ability to kind of keep this program going, we're going to consolidate it as one large drop-off day. So that is the plan right now with cleanup days.
Is there any plans to have a party or anything like that of the traditional cleanup days?
There are no plans for that, no. But we will do like we have in the past. We'll do the drawing, things like that. So anybody that can pick up trash, they'll be put into a drawing, things like that. We'll do some Facebook recognition. And I think we do a drawing for those that show their group out collecting trash, and then we'll put them in it for a drawing also.
Thank you, and next up is update on Lake Lucile Park.
Thank you. So we're gonna talk about 3 different things tonight. We'll start with Lake Lucile Park. The first item is about the opportunity to improve the red trail. And so in your packet, you should have a drawing that looks like this. It's got a red squiggly line on it. It's a map of Lake Lucile Park. We have been partnering with the Matsu Trails and Parks Foundation for several years. And so they had some monies that they wanted to pass on, and they had kind of identified the trail as a top priority to them. And this coordination had happened between my deputy director, Robert Walden, and he's on spring break right now. I was going to have him come and kind of give the background, but he walked the trail with some of the members and looked at some of the features that they wanted to highlight, especially with the way the grade changes between the soccer fields and the old amphitheater. There's some really neat spots that make it a fun trail to walk on, and so they have offered up a grant of $37,500, which is it's heading in front of the city council to receive and appropriate. And so the plan is to take some of that money and use it for staff and equipment rental to upgrade that trail. Jess, do you have any other specifics on kind of the layout and how it was chosen?
As he was saying, there's some pretty huge grade changes in there, and we'd like to get it. We're trying to get that particular section of path or trail into a point where we can get it up to ADA standard, so that more people with different debilitations and stuff like that can get out and be a part of our program and get out and see some of the things that they're not able to do at this point, just due to the style of the trail and what's in the way that you can't get through. And so we really want to go through and clean that up and really upgrade that for future, and also keep moving towards that, because we started doing that down at the dock system 2 years ago, got to where it's actually ADA compliant. And so we're just trying to get more areas to get more people out and get more of the public and community involved. And there's some sections in there where we're gonna probably move some of the trail system around a little bit to get a better, to where there ain't so many grade changes in it, and pick different avenues to meet that standard.
Any questions on that?
Overall, it looks like it's an awesome, again, a great opportunity. The more areas we have to walk, the better off we are. So can't wait to see what happens there. It's really exciting.
So what will happen is it'll go in front of the council, and we'll tell them that we talked about it. And this is one of those opportunities where, either full support or part, if someone came from Parks and Rec and said, we've heard about it, we like it, that goes a long ways at the next public council meeting.
I'm glad that the Matsu Trails and Parks Foundation was able to offer that grant, because it's like I mentioned before with that campground, it could be a lot. It could be the best around in this whole local area, but it does take a lot of money and a lot of time. So this would definitely help to solve part of that. I appreciate it.
Correct. Thanks. All right. Ready for the parking improvements? 9.2. So, the next packet are these color photos that have blue and red squares on them. These are also put together by Robert Walden, Deputy Public Works Director. So this is highlighting some of the structural changes to the parking lots. As you may recall, the city received the park from the Matsu Borough, and it had its access had just kind of organically evolved. It had roads that were hard to maintain. It was very hard to plow. So in the last summer, Parks and Properties and my office worked together to figure out how to make those parking lots more efficient, larger, so that we can host larger events out there. There are several large events that use it yearly now, and so they'll come through our office for those event permits. So we have some campouts, we have the live action role play LARPing crew that has a really nice weekend event out there. So there's quite a few people that come in large events. We have a dog event coming up where they'll have agility and other dog training events. And so we've been trying to facilitate a less muddy, less potholey, less puddly parking lot. And so what we did to facilitate that was take down a bunch of trees, bring a bunch of material in. It looks quite stark compared to the way it used to, but it's aligning for a better parking flow. So the first drawing shows the biggest parking lot, which is closest to the soccer fields. And you can see it's outlined in blue. You can see that there's flow arrows in yellow, and then the orange rectangles are theoretical vehicles, showing that you'd have single parking on the outsides and then a nose-to-nose double parking in the middle. The calculation is roughly 200 parking spots, and there are realigned parking bumpers and just facilitating those larger events and providing more snow stores. We have better parking for the winter users. The next drawing shows more parking closer to this is closer to the back campground, correct, Jess?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jess and his team had done some amazing material movement in the back there. We used to call it the Boy Scout camp. It's now kind of called the bow range parking area. And then we actually had a contractor come in and do some extra work. So this is an area that can be rented.
That's the one with the dogs. The next one's the bow range. Sorry.
Yeah, no, this one's the bow range. So we have parties that rent the whole area back there. They'll do camping and stuff, and so we wanted to add parking in that area. They get a key to the gate by the soccer fields, and they drive around the updated road, and so they can park back there. And so we've made 48 spots, and we've had some really good feedback on fixing the grade of the road. It's a lot easier to drive. The drainage is much better, and then the parking just makes it a really useful and valuable spot. And that's one of those. I don't know if a lot of entities know about it, so I think there's a lot of room for other community groups to get a reservation for it and have, summer gatherings or whatever kind of fun thing they want to do and kind of be off on their own. And then it's tied to the bow range too, so there's a lot of opportunity for multiple events throughout the year. And then the last drawing is the updated parking lot by the lake. So we've got the new access down to the docks and boardwalk that Justin and his crew built last year. What it used to be was kind of an in and an out with a tree island and then a lobe that was, I don't know if it acted like a boat launch, but there's never a boat launch, right? So yeah. And this is a kind of a connection from the campground to the lake as well. So it was widened and the parking was realigned so that it made more sense for trailers. There's 32 spots there now, and as Jess mentioned, they took great care in grading at the head of the trail so that it has ADA compliant parking spots, and you can get all the way down to the water via an ADA boardwalk. Are there any questions on any of those?
I'm sorry, has this already been done? So all the work on this has already been done, parking wise, blah, 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 just an update on that, to my understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
And I think, do we still have some topping to do?
Yes, we have some asphalt that we need to put down.
Yeah.
That we put all the rock in and we were waiting for it to be worked and drove on in order to make sure it's completely stable before we put asphalt on it. So if there's any movement, I'd rather have it happen now and give it time to settle out with the rain and the weather and then come through and top it so that it's a nice even kill that you should be able to get down, up and down with a wheelchair pretty easily.
And then it's not really on tonight, but we can just talk about it. The other improvement that you will see is the campsites that used to be the tent camping sites. All those trees were taken down because when the camping area was built, they basically built the road above the existing grade, and so all the campsites were in holes. So any rain event would flood your campsite. The road would be high and dry, but you'd be in these holes. They had become overgrown. They weren't nice, so it wasn't like inviting to families, and so it started turning into a tent camp, you know, like Anchorage, and that wasn't something we wanted. So we kind of gave it a clean sweep, and Justin and his crew went through and did a bulk removal of the trees so that we can work on a better layout. And the plan is to have those campsites be useful again, so that they are highly sought after for, you know, recreational camping and not long-term. One of the things that we've seen the campground turn into is cheap summer places to live, and we're trying to limit that. We don't want low-income housing out there. It's supposed to be for recreation. We want families. And so that work begun, but we don't have the new layout for it. So that's something that we'll be bringing back to you to look at. Where we've got plans to, we had to take the playground out of the RV camping area because the playground had just reached the end of its useful life. It was dangerous. We have several playgrounds like that. We'll talk about Nunley in a minute. So you'll see that we took that out and salvaged the bark that we put around playgrounds, and we'll be putting together a proposal to replace that. So it's going to be kind of boring in the campground this summer for kids, but we know the value of the playground in the campsites. It's really important that families can let the kids go play, but they're not very far away, and you can keep an eye on them, and it needs to be co-located properly. So
The upgraded parking and the roads through there, I'm sure will be greatly appreciated, and thank you for that. Had a question if, you know, down the road, is there any thought into putting an RV dump site in there?
there is, yeah. Right now we have pit toilets, which aren't much fun to use, and I think there's a lot of value in upgrading the amenities at the whole campsite. You know, one of the things that we benefit from is having a nice camp host site. We do pay the camp hosts some money, but we're trying to raise that quality to attract top tier camp hosts. And one of those needs is to have a dump site. So it makes sense if one user group would use it, then a lot of user groups should use it. So we're interested in bringing that value and having a long-term feasible plan that adds that value and brings users in. There isn't that many camping spots in the valley. You know, there's the KOA that used to be Big Bear, and only other couple. And so, yeah, we're really interested in bringing those amenities that make it worth everyone's while. Bring locals even to come camping, and also all the visitors that come through the valley all summer long.
How many of the sites have, for RVs, have electricity?
Do you know that?
I don't have an actual number, it's about half.
We have like 48 spots or something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's about half. About halfway through there, heading to the right towards the camp house is all powered, and then everything to the left heading towards the bathrooms there's no power to that portion of it.
It's still quite a bit compared to where it was years ago.
Correct.
Right, yeah, that's a lot. Thank you. Questions?
All right, and so the last park I want to talk about tonight is Nunley Park. So I'm on a penance tour for Nunley Park. I don't know if you followed any of the Facebook posts or anything like that. We cut the trees down in Nunley Park before we brought the plan out, and that got the community pretty excited. And the background on that is we had no snow and we had no kids in the park, so it was the safest time to cut trees down. It was just not the publicized time to cut trees down. So we wanted to back up at the direction of the mayor and the council and talk about the vision that we have right now, and also talk about the plan going forward for community input, community buy-in. The genesis of the whole project was that the tree line, which is kind of an alleyway actually, the park, I'll back up. The park is interesting because a section of it is park, and then the other part is a bunch of just lots. And so the actual park is the part along Swanson. The trees are in an alleyway, and then you have the parcels that are closest to us, and those are just individual parcels. The city owns the whole block except for the parcels where the dance studio was. think it's empty now. It was sold, but we own all of it except for the dance studio. And the Swanson side is the park, and everything else is just parcels that the city owns. And so, and then 2012, the community garden was put in, and then there's the kind of the lower area outside the door here that's just a grassy area, and then you have the kind of unmaintained parking lot that we push snow into most of the year. So there was concerns about safety and kind of sketchy feeling of the trees, make people uncomfortable, and we find lots of needles in there, and so that doesn't work well for the fact that Nunley Park tends to be the park where younger families go, families with toddlers and little ones that want to swing and stuff use that park. So it's pretty disconcerting that those trees were drawing that kind of misuse. We've also heard from my house on the other end that the couple wooded lots over there have uses that make them uncomfortable as well. So one of the council members said, I want to add lights, and we went through and did a pretty aggressive clearing of a lot of the trees and started working with, to get the view through them, started working with some electrical contractors to figure out how we might bring power through the center there so that we could add these lights. And we were trying to figure out how tall the lights are we talking. And then, as you've noticed, the Christmas light decorations have grown and grown and grown, and we've been really proud of those. We've received lots and lots of feedback. So then utility service, electrical service for those was proposed, and so the electrical project kind of grew in scope, and it started being pretty apparent that it was going to impact the trees that were there. And when you add in the fact that the two play structures are at or nearing the end of their useful life, that needs to be replaced. And then part of the project morphed into adding more community planters for the community garden. You start to see 3/4 of the park are now being addressed, and so these trees were kind of in the way now, if you will. They became an impediment to the cost. If we put the electrical in and put lights in, and then we have cottonwoods and other not structurally safe trees start to fall on these facilities because we've impacted them with our trenching and stuff, it wasn't probably wasn't a good long-term plan. So then the executive decision by the mayor was to, let's just get rid of them, and then we'll just add new plantings to the overall plan. Came to fruition, and that was fine until they all came down without telling anyone. And so we are today. So what we wanted you to see, and we wanted feedback, was we've been working with playground manufacturers to get some ideas on what they could do that would have, thank you, and also kind of replicate what we have with newer equipment and maybe co-located instead of having two structures. One thing I forgot to mention too was the caboose tends to be either loved or hated, and so that's come up multiple times, and it's definitely it receives responses on both sides. We're very concerned from a liability perspective on the caboose because I've seen many kids on the very top multiple times, and we've contacted folks and parents and said, hey, they shouldn't be up there, and they're like looking at ground level. We're like, no, they're on the caboose. And they're like, oh, get off of that, and they're 15 feet in the air. The caboose also has lead paint on it, and it has asbestos components. It doesn't have the proper fall protection. It was supposed to be parallel to the park, but now it's perpendicular, and it really causes some sightline issues where you have to be on one side or the other, and as soon as your kids go on the other side, you can't see them. And if you've seen the Matsu Sentinel reporting on it, they did a great job of explaining that it doesn't have any historic value. It came up to be at the McDonald's, which, I mean, I'm sure lots of people had their birthday parties there, but it's not an Alaskan Railroad caboose. So it's really outlived its value, and it's a real liability for the city, or, at risk every day from someone falling off and suing us. So the proposal too is that its home be reevaluated as the park is reimagined.
So if I may, once upon a time, the Parks and Rec Commission was tasked with getting a theme to our parks, to our city parks. So we don't look like anywhere, no offense, but anywhere USA,
Yeah.
right? So what is it with Wasilla? Well, to be honest with you, the only thing here was the railroad. So that was the theme. That particular rail car, I'm gonna say I had absolutely nothing to do with that. It just showed up, right? And it was one person making a deal with another person, and there it was. So there was no checking on anything. There was no nothing. And so my understanding was this entity was looking for something that wouldn't be a hazard, that would have been maybe recessed into the ground, that would have been, could have been. It didn't happen. So what do we do going forward so we don't look like anywhere USA and this looks like Wasilla? That's a question.
It's a great question, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, playground companies, they made some amazing things and, you know, climbing for all abilities, and it's all well and good. But what do you do with the park to make it tie in to look like it belongs in Wasilla?
Right. Well, and I think, and that's where stepping back and having the public process is really important. So, you know, I think it comes down to, so what do we have right now? We have a playground. Do we want to keep it? Probably, yep. We have a community garden. Do we want to keep and expand it? I would say probably, yep. There's a new pavilion there. Do we want to keep that? I would say, yeah. Do we want to make parking more legitimized by having it paved and, you know, the correct size for vehicles? I think the time right now is to say, what do we like about Nunley and what do we want to keep and improve and what have we changed our minds on? And so the caboose doesn't have to go, but it definitely has to be fixed. We can't have kids on top of it. We can't have asbestos. We can't have lead paint. We have to either make it right or make it go. And so that's where direction is necessary. And then the decision, like say it has to stay and it has to be safe, then funding, of course, needs to happen. And there's going to be timelines that needs to be decided because of that impending risk, right? We know that it has these risks. We know that kids are on top when they shouldn't be. We know that there's no fall protection, and so it's either make it right or make it go somewhere else. And so those are the guidances that we're looking to hear from your board tonight, and then also be able to talk about it with the council, because they'll be approving whatever project and spending is associated with it. So we want to have that collaboration.
So again, on that particular train, I personally had anything to do with it. At one point in time, I do believe the commission was talking about more like an engine, more like something just to stand out, not necessarily be something that was going to be a hazard. Definitely, we're not looking for lead paint in a children's park. You know what I'm saying? So once again, it was a deal made between people, and then it just showed up. And it's like, it was after the fact, you can't say anything, do anything, then, you know, because let's say it was functional, let's say it was down lower, let's say whatever. And if it was a different train that wasn't a hazard, it was, gee, in the winter, you know, when there was the holiday get-togethers going on, whether it was at the museum or whatever, and we had people going through, it could have been the hot chocolate location, it could have been set for birthday parties, it could have been. But it just, like I said, it just showed up, and it was after the fact that everyone's like, oops, now we can't do anything with it. So, you know, there is a huge liability there. It just is. And you can put up signs galore and hand out hard hats, but that doesn't mean it's going to solve it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Real fast, I have to say, seeing the train go away is actually pretty cool because it doesn't really do much right now. It's kind of more of an eyesore than anything. In terms of making our parks stick out, we could have Wasilla colors, red, white. You know, we could have little information about residents that have, you know, donated. Like, I don't even know how that property got allocated to the city of Wasilla, but stuff of that knowledge is kind of cool to stick out more than the fact of the train that's more of a headache, if that makes sense. One question I had is, does the plan currently have any plans for adding any other platforms like basketball courts or tennis courts? Does it have any plans right now for any other user bases to possibly be able to use that park?
Not at the moment. So the kind of overall plan was to regrade and use some of the hilly sections and bring them down and fill in. It's probably still icy, but what you'll notice is that during that rain event that we had in the middle of winter, when everything's frozen, it was flooded. There's over a foot of ice at the low side, and that floods in the spring until breakup finally happens. And so our goal was to move material around the site to make the grades more even. It's on-site free, basically, to fill holes with lumps and kind of stair-step it down. And so the main components of the plan were expanding the community garden, like we discussed. The existing location of them is they're arrayed in a way that you have a hard time getting into them, and they're installed in 2012. So the grass has overtaken the area, and the dirt's kind of lost its vigor, if you will. And so Jess and his crew have been making more maintainable ones, and the plan was to move them down a little bit and have a broader area so we can fit more, and then they have them aligned in a way that we can get tractors in and out and move materials and refresh the dirt every so often. That corner is actually really important for City Hall snow storage, and so we want to slide it over and keep that for snow storage, and then have a broader area for the community garden. And then the parking lot needs updating, which then brings us down to the entry of the park, and in that grading we bring dirt down and fill in the low spots, talk about new play structures, whatever that looks like. Then there are swings that were removed because they had structurally failed that we want to reinstall, but we only want to do that when we figure out where they should go, and that drags us into, well, now the train's in the way. And so you see this, like, they're all connected, unfortunately. We have to make these decisions so that it makes sense. And then the rest of the area is kind of that graded grassy area. And then at the far end, we've got the other parking lot that was a storm drain project that we got DEC monies for, which is working fine, but we don't have a good connection from that parking lot back into the park. So we have these like impediments, kind of like what Jess was talking about with the ADA considerations for Lucile. Access from that parking lot into the park isn't ADA. We should look at grading that as well. So we've got these areas, but I think the broad grassy area, we don't really have any features planned for that. So that's definitely an opportunity for suggestions.
So just to let you know, before the train was there, what was there were tennis courts that were run down, not maintained, not usable. It had a gate on it, so people would put their dogs in or their little kids in it and walk away. So it was not functional.
I wondered why it was flat. When were they taken out?
Well, the year before the train.
Oh, okay.
And so they were once again right in the middle.
Yeah.
And it was the same kind of a thing. Only if your child ran off from one end, you had just a couple feet to try to run all the way around. It was a mess. So having some cohesion with this whole thing will be good. Is there any drawings?
Not yet. Yeah. So we're securing a landscape architect so we can have some drawings. So what we want to do is bring back to you the initial drawings, and we can talk about spatial connections and how they work. One of the things I think too that we've discussed is aligning pathways that make the park a cut through. We want to make it inviting. We want to make it the shortcut so that people, leave the streets and walk into the park to go from one side to the other. Right now, because there's no real pathway and there's no ADA access, if you need to go from one end of, if you want to go to Lucile to Herning, you're probably not going to cut through the park. You're still going to stay on the sidewalk. And I think one of the goals that I think would make a successful park is if you are just kind of naturally drawn in. Do I want to stay next to the road, or do I want to go into this park? I can see where I'm going to go. I want to go through the park. And I think that's why Idita Park is so well received. No one wants to walk along Nelson if they can go into the park. They're going to go in there, and it's, proximity to roads is always everyone's gonna choose kind of the greener, more quieter path. And so I think we wanna see connections that make sense so that people are naturally drawn off the sidewalks into the park.
Are the playground areas still gonna be fenced?
Yeah, I don't think we have a plan to remove fencing. We know that the fencing is really important for those younger families. You gotta keep the kids corralled, and we don't want them to access the streets too quickly. I think what you'll notice, so I don't wanna steal Scott's thunder, but the park's gonna be integral for 4th of July parade. The plan right now is that it's gonna play a role in the judging this year for the 4th of July parade. We may be messing with the fence. I'm concerned about access back and forth on Swanson. We may have some temporary access to allow the people to move, because that's a long fence with no access to the sidewalk. But in general, I think that fence is really important for young kids to not make it to the street too quickly. And I think that's why it's been lending itself as the little kid park. There's no big kids. We just lost them. Well, what we noticed at Idita Park is the big kids get kind of rowdy and kind of intimidate the little kids. So I think that's another reason that Nunley Park has been the younger kid park.
I think Nunley's always been a tot lot. It's just, for one, having that wide open grass is really nice.
Yeah.
Kids can just run.
Yep.
Because when you look around, there's not really a whole lot of places, and some families are in areas where they don't have like a yard. They don't have anywhere to go. So it's just nice to have that just wide open.
Agreed. And I'd like to see events there that capitalize on that. You know, like, I don't know, get-togethers that need big grassy spots. So any questions on the plan? So like I mentioned, we're gonna have a landscape architect drop kind of the initial locations, and we'll bring it back to you to look at, and we wanna hear more ideas, and if there's a user group that we haven't thought about, if we need, what's that lawn bowling called? Bocce ball. If we need a bocce ball court or something.
That would be good.
Justin, did you wanna say something?
Yeah, the color scheme on that particular diagram you're looking at is not the color scheme. That's just, when you look online and stuff and you choose, that's the style of playground. The reason I'm looking at it, because it goes from 2 to 5, then it goes from 6 to 12. Because a lot of times older kids kind of get stuck hanging out with their little toddlers. And it gives something to where there's more well-rounded play for all the different genres of kids that go there. And then adding the swing sets and stuff like that. The other thing I was looking at as I was reading through some of the past stuff that was there, we don't have a toddler swing set in there. And there's just a few other items, but the color scheme is not the scheme. We were looking at the Wasilla color scheme as he had brought up and mentioned. That's why the swing set was red. And we just hadn't, I can change the colors because I've already talked to the people that do it, and they said I can pick what I want for that. Or we can pick whatever we want, because we're, as a group, that's what we want, is what everybody wants. And so with that, just be open-minded to what it is, and you can order certain play sets that have train and different things like that. The problem that happens when you do that, just from when I was looking, I was trying to find different schemes and thought processes, and the money amount just quadruples. I mean, it gets astronomical. And then the other part of it that's really expensive that most people don't think about when it comes to this is the shipping. I mean, the cost of shipping just to get a playground of that structure up here is over half the cost of the playground is just in shipping on top of that. So it's a very big expense, and we want to get the most bang for our buck for the community, because it's their money and we want to make sure it's used properly for them so they have a better area and more activity area and such like that. We have picnic tables and all kinds of things. This is a whole scheme to make our downtown area become kind of a shining star instead of run down where it's been and everything's aging out.
Right.
Is where this all started from.
Questions?
Any feedback?
I think at this time, just kind of early on, it's awesome to see the change in Nunley Park. I think everything that we've heard so far is an improvement. So again, in terms of feedback, I can't wait to see the next step of what the design provides us.
So I'll give you a little heads up on schedule. So we're not going to do anything else until after 4th of July. And that gives us time, of course, to build the plan and bring it back and discuss it. But also because we want it to kind of mellow out and be ready for the 4th of July parade. So that'll push us into the next fiscal year. So this is the right time for us to, I don't want you to be like surprised because we are in the middle of the CIP process. I'm going to put CIP money in there. I'm going to say Nunley Park needs, I'm just going to throw a number out, but 300,000 or something big, right? It's easier to like repurpose the money afterwards, but you know, and the council might say, we haven't picked a plan. Fair enough. We won't spend any of it until the plan's picked, but I don't want to, and they could say, no, don't, just come back middle of the budget cycle. That's fine too. I'm at for asking up front and have a number planted, but so you'll see some money to it, but that doesn't, I don't want you to feel like we're short-circuiting the process and that you won't be involved again. I just don't want to miss the opportunity to have it in the budget, have the discussions. And then I also just want to, on my soapbox for a second, highlight that your feedback to the council is very important. So make yourself known to them, you know, let them know. I mean, be careful about your Open Meetings Act, but you also are constituents and you have opinions and you should share those. So don't feel like you're not allowed to. The other thing I was going to mention was Open Meetings Act rules. If you wanted to work on a document and you wanted to have input, as long as you're doing it through your city emails, you know, that's totally fine. You can share your information. It's the collaboration, like meeting for coffee all together and meeting outside of this scope, that's not allowed, but you're allowed to work on stuff. You're allowed to share your opinions. It just needs to be searchable, and that's where your email and normal correspondence are required. So, and if you have any questions, the clerks will always clarify. So,
Well, I'm glad to see something happening, even if, you know, it takes till next year. It would still be happening much faster than ever, right?
right.
And even though other things can't happen, is there a possibility of getting, you know, a low spot patched in just for the summer? So if, you know, whenever it does rain, that it's not sunk over there?
At this point, no. But I mean, we have to broach that with the council. I don't know if anyone saw the meeting. I was taken to the tool shed, the wood shed, but they want public process. They want the public to know what's going on. And so I've committed that we don't want to do any ground disturbance before 4th of July anyway, because we just don't want a muddy mess. Justice Crew did a great job with a chipper, and they took care of all the stumps. We've got mulch everywhere, and I think it'll really mellow out here for the next few months. And then if we have enough structure and support from the council, we may be able to get in there. But the direction right now, especially Monday night's meeting, they passed a will of the council that nothing can happen out there until they've approved the plan. So.
Well, just keeping it clean, I'll just say this, you know, there's been a lot of problems, especially in the last 2 years in this whole area that we've never had problems before. I mean, you might have an occasional person that just kind of strays through, but not like this. And not to the point that it's not safe and you don't want to turn your back, as a parent, turn your back because you don't know where your child went. It used to be that the trees were just trees. There were a little mini forests there and people would go through and just enjoy them. But it's hard to enjoy them when you don't know what's there. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't safe.
Yep.
So after people get over the initial shock and things green up again in the spring, then it'll probably level out.
I think so too.
Any other comments about Nunley Park or improvements? Okay. Audience comments?
Hello, my name is Scott Sand. I'm in the city of Wasilla, and I live over by Lucile, Lake Lucile Park. So I had some questions on the fencing and stuff that's along Endeavor Point subdivision there.
Wood fence.
What fence, that wood fence that's there, and how you guys are gonna extend it, and I don't know if you guys had any plans like that you could share, that we could bring back to our HOA kind of thing, what you guys have planned.
There is plans for that wood fence being extended. It's gotta go out to bid. I'm not sure exactly the full.
I thought I already did.
Did you already do that?
I
I thought Robert and you were working on that.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure we have the contractor. I just don't know how close to the lake it gets.
And then the part from where the fence is up to like the metal gate, up to the metal gate there too, there's like 60 feet there that people can just walk through too.
Oh, okay.
So we need to address that maybe at the same time if it didn't get addressed before.
Okay.
But yeah, we're looking just kind of see if we could, since we are a gated community, you know, partially, the front right there, people can just walk in right at the entrance there. There's like 60 feet up front there. That needs to be done, plus whatever you guys are doing in the back there to kind of secure that area. We're just kind of wondering if we could get some information on that so we could bring to a meeting next month.
Would you leave your information before you go, and we'll just make sure we can contact your homeowner association?
Yep, sounds good. And then I got a question on the, so that new area that you guys all cleared out there closest to our subdivision, what is that gonna be?
That's the tent camping area. So
Tent
we're gonna realign the road and make tent spots.
Okay.
Yep.
And then is that like a pay to camp kind of thing
It
there?
is, yeah.
All that area is back there?
Yep.
Okay,
But it's not, no one can camp there right now, so it's
Right.
gonna be uncamped in for a while.
okay. All right. Yeah, and there's a lot of traffic in and out of there. I know over the winter, there's not people camping back there. And how you said before, people used to just hang out there and live there for all summer kind of thing.
Yep.
And there's a lot of riffraff that comes through there all night long. So I want to see if there's some kind of way that we could maybe get some more City of Wasilla police involvement or some kind of
Yeah.
signage or some kind of something over there that kind of, you know, because what are you doing out there in the middle of the night? You know, there's only a couple things they'll be doing back there, and then they race out of this stop sign and then peel out onto the asphalt that's on Endeavor there. So it's pretty loud, the little area.
It's an ongoing battle for us too.
Yeah, I know I've lived here all my life, so I know I haven't been in that park in a couple of years, but
The PT has been doing an exceptional job of coming in, checking on that, coming in, pulling through there through the evening hours. So there is presence of them being there a lot more than there ever has been. Some of the gating that we've put in there is to stop that meeting down by the lake or over by the bathroom side that gets closed off every night at 10 o'clock, which is part of the camp host job that we have. And, you know, it was like Eric was saying, we've had kind of struggles with getting camp hosts of higher caliber to come in there, do the job, and still be personable and still maintain what needs to happen.
Right.
You know, but we are definitely working towards better security there and more like we're trying to change things to where the people that come out there are, you know, more family style and the kind of things that we want there to begin with, which actually benefits you guys right next door to us. You know, so we're
yeah,
definitely
it's a loud
working.
area, and I know there's a lot of good use there. If people, you know, come there for their soccer thing on the weekend and whatnot, they could camp and they could actually stay right there. It'd be a good use, and that's the kind of stuff we need to look for instead of people just living there all summer.
And that's what we're trying to figure out, how to meet that requirement and be successful for both you guys and us.
Right.
And it's problematic, like you said, because it draws the police, get called out there a lot due to those kind of things being facilitated there.
Right. Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff and commission comments? Any staff comments first?
You got any comments, Scott?
No comments.
You got any?
No, I'm good.
I love commenting. Let me think if I can think of anything good. Oh, we add gate to every problem. So we had tree gate. I don't know if you caught lake gate, but we had some complaints about kids out on the lake doing Brodies and doing 100 miles an hour and driving through someone's yard and stuff. So that brought up the attention on access. We talked about gates, access at, what street is that? Is that East Susitna that goes right into the lake, wherever the boat launch is? Yeah, so, we didn't close it, but we said we're gonna close it, and then we got a lot of complaints, and I didn't realize this, but a lot of homeowners on Tillicum drive across the lake all winter long. It's their shortcut home. So I had a gentleman, Monday morning who said, you can't close that off. That's how I get home all winter long when the ice is thick enough. So that was news to me. I didn't realize it was the driveway access. So it's an interesting thing. The other thing I'll let you know is one of the other council initiatives was a vegetation management plan, specifically invasive species like purple veg. What was the other one? Hawkweed's not one that they mentioned, but that's one that needs to be dealt with too. Purple veg and something else. And so I've been reaching out to other governmental agencies that deal with it, like DOT and the railroad, and they work with the Soil and Water Conservation Group. And there's the Wasilla chapter, which is kind of defunct, and the Palmer chapter that has employees, and they are able to take invasive plant management plans and use them. So talking about like if there's herbicides approved, what the processes are. So I'll be bringing to council kind of a small framework to use them and their employees as our opportunity to address invasive plants around the city. So my intention is to start with some visible infestations that are either in DOT, railroad, and our right-of-ways, and have some small but visible projects where we leverage their training and certifications to start to address those. But it had been stuck because Jess and his crew already have enough to do. Asking them to become herbicide experts is just too much. And so I was really excited to make the connections with the Soil and Water Conservation Group that are already vastly more trained and, live in that world. So I'm excited to actually be able to show some progress. I hate a directive that I can't make any motion on. So that'll be something that comes out here in the next couple months. That's all I got.
Good, thank you.
I did have a question. Is there ever plans down the road to connect Endeavor and Tilcom so that people could drive around the lake there?
That's a great question. So that segment of Wasilla was never platted with a good road. I don't know what happened. That wasn't, they didn't want it. So actually, everyone that lives on Tillicum is driving down a power line easement. That's not even the platted road. They don't have the road built where it should be. And then there's a couple parcels between them and the Endeavor neighborhood that don't connect. So I don't know if that'll ever happen. The what is the name of that development right behind you guys?
Valley Ridge.
Yeah, Valley Ridge is building its way back, and it's going to connect to Lobo or Corky. Yeah, so that's going to be the connection, but that doesn't fill us with joy because that means all those neighbors are going to be driving down Lake Lucile Drive or Avenue, whatever it's called. That's not made for that. So now we're working on, there's a platted right-of-way called Laybourne Drive, I think, that was supposed to be built 20 years ago that didn't get built. That's probably going to need to happen. And so one of the things that we have to do, Public Works has to do, is in 2005, a planning document was made for road expansions. It's like the Wasilla Road Master Plan or something like that. It needs to be updated, and that Laybourne Drive is going to be on the top of the list for was planned, never built, probably need to build it sort of planning, because there's those connections that need to be done. But that's one major road that has been on the books for a long time that never got traction. So, but that corner down there is not served very well by access, and we've got kind of our work cut out for us to connect it properly.
I live there on the Lake Lucile Drive, and it's crazy because the development in that neighborhood, just in the span I've lived there, and then my whole life I've seen that neighborhood change is crazy.
Yeah.
It's really developed a lot, and it's funny because you can go back there and you can get lost on a road, and next thing you know, you're at a peony farm or something like that.
Yes.
So the blending of Alaska is really interesting there.
Yep.
Going back to the staffing comments, one thing that I keep hearing is infrastructure. It seems like that seems to be a very big vocal point of all of our committees, all of our commissions, city council, everyone here. Seems like infrastructure seems to still be the big issue that we come across, be it parking, be it lighting, be it information. Infrastructure seems to still be something that our committee can really provide maybe the steps for the city to make sure that they have the infrastructure. Not only is it parking at Lake Lucile, but all the parks. We need to kind of figure out, as we do our master parks plan here, what does a park need? You know, what does a park really need to not only succeed now, but what is it something that we can set in stone for the city to kind of start setting up guidelines for these parks to have some type of consistency, be it the park playground equipment being a certain color, or be it, you know, hey, if this park is designed for so many kids, we need to make sure the parking supports that. I know at Iditarod Park, we're starting to have that issue again, be an issue of parking. Just driving it with our early spring that we've had, it's amazing seeing how many people are out there using the basketball courts and the tennis courts and the overall usage of the parks is there. Us as a committee, it's really important that we provide the infrastructure so that the user has the best experience possible and the city can kind of see what they need to do to provide that for them, so.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work. I probably you don't hear that enough, but yeah, I watch it all, and this Nunley Park looks great. Looks great. I saw that and I had to drive around the park just to check my eyes again. It looks good. Looks good.
Well, thank you for all the updates, because believe it or not, this is the most that's happened in years. And so due to the fact that other areas were clear-cutted in places that no one expected, when it happened here, it was a big knee-jerk reaction. But even if you put signs out saying that it was going to happen, somebody would still say the same thing. But, you know, a couple years from now, they'll go by and say, wow, that was awesome. So it's just, you know, baby steps. But it'll get there. Thank you.
One thing I do want to say about Nunley, and Dan of course left, but if we can get any organizations kind of like Dan's who comes in, they get skin in the game and they say, hey, by having this park, it allows for our users to have a better experience. They're going to be the ones so that Jesse has less work that he has to do, because they're going to go in and they're going to do the maintenance. They're going to come to the city council meetings. They're going to really represent it. So when we do think about the parks, we need to make sure we think about it in terms of not only the average user, but who can we draw into this park to make it have a longevity.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you as well. The updates are great, and Leonard, thanks for this plan. I think it's a great step forward. I look forward to, you know, seeing how the comprehensive plan is coming together and attending the next council meeting. You know, even just to see you get taken to the chipper a little bit. Could be a little fun for the rest of us. But yeah, and Nunley looks really good. I'm excited to see that, and the drainage issue get solved over there too, especially because it's like we had 2 ice skating rinks every winter, and I think we're good with 1. But thank you guys.
Any last comments? Okay, and